have time for questions. So right now I want to introduce Lois Wittner, who's Professor Emeritus at San Diego Mesa College, and she has developed these amazingly accurate models of buildings and scenes from San Diego's Chinatown that must be seen. I have new insight into all these dioramas in our museum after talking to her, and we have a model of the Jim Wing department store, the Chong supermarket, the Turf Club and Parlor House, and the Wong Lee Laundry and the restored Chinese Mission building. And she's got, what Lois has done is she's taken hours of video and winnowed them down into a manageable amount of video about each one of her models that she's going to talk about. And then we're going to have John LeeWong as a discussant. John LeeWong has been an advertising and creative art director for over 40 years, is now retired. But more importantly, he grew up in San Diego, and his parents ran the Wong Lee Laundry on State Street in downtown that we have the model of, and he and Lois worked together to get it created. And so with no further ado, let's hear from Lois. Lois? Lois, don't forget to unmute yourself. There we go.
The Buddhists have a saying that you can focus on one small thing and it can be the center of your universe. And so I am going to be taking all of you to a small trip through Asian interest and events through small things. My name is Miss Lois Wittner. I taught at Mesa College for 32 years. I spent 1 year in Guangzhou, and I have been back to China and other Asian countries many times. So let's take a look at small things.
I'll show you a couple things about when I put things together. One of the things is that a lot of the items are just everyday items that most people throw away, and I look at and I save, and it drives some people crazy. For example, this is just a container, and I think it had pills in it. I really can't remember what it is. But these little bowls right here are going to end up being rice bowls. So I'm gonna take this paint, and I'm just gonna paint the interior. I'm just gonna do a couple of these, although I'll eventually do all of them, just so you can see what the process is. So the interior is going to be painted, and then what's going to happen is I'm going to cut that out and put a little tiny decal on it. You can see it in the diorama. Okay, I want to show you how I made the trash can. And here's how it starts out. It starts out as a piece of cardboard, and you have to gently pull this off. I pre-prepped this for you because it's actually quite time consuming. I'm going to take the bottom of this, and this is, like I said, a little to-go container, and I'm just going to glue the bottom. This is 3 inches or 3 feet in real human stuff. So I'm going to just glue the bottom of this, and I'm going to wrap it around. And then what I'm going to do is, to get the little texture here, this is the lid that would go to that. And then I'm going to be gluing that both on the bottom and the top, but this will help me set it up. And I'm going to just punch that in, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the top to give it some stability. And then I'm going to do this again, and again I'm going to put glue in here, and I would normally let these set up probably And then I'm gonna put that on top. Okay, so that's what it's gonna end up looking like. Now this one's already painted, and then I'm gonna cut the interior of this out. I'm going to begin with the first model that I made, and that is of Xi'an. It is the least impressive, I think, model, but it is the most impressive in real life. I had the opportunity to go to a seminar in Xi'an, and so I got to learn quite a bit about Xi'an and Xinshi Huang, although you could easily fill a library now with everything that they've discovered, and they're discovering even more. They have since I've been there, they think that the actual site is probably around 21 square miles. So they really don't know how extensive this is. I would like to tell you the reason that this is made for the visually impaired. And the reason that happened is because when I was there, one of the girls that was making these small terracotta soldiers that you can buy as souvenirs for less than $1 each, was blind as she was putting these into the molds. So I thought, if she can do it, if she can make the molds, I can make it so that the visually impaired can see these terracotta soldiers. And so that is what happened. And since then, many visually impaired folks have been able to get the information. The Braille Institute of San Diego was kind enough to translate everything into Braille. So along with the actual model, there's copy that can be read. In 1974, several peasants around Xi'an today, about 41 miles east, accidentally discovered some bits of broken terracotta and what appeared to be old weapons. What they found was the burial place of Xinshi Huang, the first proclaimed first emperor of China. He was very powerful, clever, superstitious, cruel, egotistical, and brilliant. He is credited with uniting the 7 warring states of China in less than 11 years of war, thus ending several years of chaos in China's history. He set up a central government, ordered standardized legal codes, currencies, which was very important, some written languages, and weights and measures, which became very important. He wanted to live forever, so he sent alchemists with several thousand children to experiment and search for a life-giving medicine to the East China Sea. Simultaneously, he began building a mausoleum for himself when he ascended to the throne at 13 years of age. He took full power at 22. It is strongly believed that the project was not finished when he died at age 49. Xinshi Huang is credited with uniting the existing walls for the Great Wall and making what we think today of the Great Wall of China. It is estimated that overall, about 3 million, 15% of the population, were constructed to build palaces, tombs, the Great Wall, and other edifices. Buried with him were several of his wives, concubines, and favorite servants. It is not known how many riches were buried with him, but there are accounts of unparalleled grander. Mercury was pooled to simulate China's rivers. Lamps lit with human and whale fat were burned, while mechanically triggered crossbows were strategically placed to shoot any intruder that dared to enter. Partly because of his extravagance, excesses, taxes, and cruelty, his empire lasted only 15 years. I'm going to get some close-ups on some of these. He devastated culture by burning books and extremely cruel punishments, such as burying Confucius alive, putting honey on their heads, and then putting ants on top of that. The 2,200-year-old tomb is gigantic in size, about 3 miles in circumference, or the size of what one sees as a football field today, is filled with about 6,000 soldiers, horses, and chariots for as far as the eye can see. Each of the lifelike statues has its own detail and no two are exactly alike. At one time, the warriors and horses were painted in bright colors. The large quantity of ancient weapons that were found show a technical sophistication that was unknown to Western culture for hundreds of years. Smaller bronze carriages, such as this one, that I did not make, by the way, I purchased this. But these were made with precious and semi-precious stone, gold and silver, very expensive gems. It is believed that the magnificent site is a replica of life in this area about 2,300 years ago. Neither words nor the model can do justice of what some still consider the eighth wonder of the world. The magnificent sight must be seen in person to be fully appreciated. The next model that I'd like to walk through is Lunar New Year. Now, I would like to tell you that I spent 13 months in Guangzhou, China, and my kitchen was almost identical to this. And I'd like to show you a couple things that I think are kind of important. One of the most important things, I think, is that if you don't have water 24 hours, 7 days a week, you do have water. And when you do have it, you have a vat like this over your sink, and then you have a little valve. I'm trying to show you that right there. And then as you need water, you just take it. Then also, I saw this many, many times where a microwave was attached to a battery. The other thing that I saw like that many times was a television, and many times there would be one television for the entire village. How you get your food, this would be fish in the bucket on more than one occasion. I came home with a fish on my floor because it would flop out of the water. This is the kitchen god, and they would put honey on the mouth of the kitchen god so that when they descended to the higher heavens, they would say sweet things. And that's also one of the ways that we get the term honeymoon. As you can see, the stove is connected to propane. That's very common throughout many developing countries, even still today. And a small refrigerator. And of course, when the electricity goes off, you make sure that you don't open it. Again, everything here also is correct. The three children are playing games. In theory, there's 3 days of eating and drinking and having a good time. The reality of it is that the women work and the men drink and smoke and have a good time and get up when they feel like it and go to sleep when they feel like it, and the women work. And I'll show you the birds that I showed to indicate that. This is a fan. Again, I use the base of a computer fan, and then those blades are from a regular fan. You will see in the background many, what they are is stamps from China, and then I just framed them. Now what you would also see here is you have an altar, and each province will have different foods and different things that they believe in. But you can see, and they have cards, very much like we send cards for Christmas, they send cards for Lunar New Year. And then of course the altar, depending on the religious conviction, they may have a pig that they are sacrificing, or fruit, etc. You have lots and lots of fun things going on. You have traditional foods here. And just like we would have traditional foods for Christmas, they have traditional foods for Lunar New Year. And it will vary from province to province, depending on the situation, depending on where they are. This is a almond. This happens to be a grain of rice. It's very difficult to see, but it does have one of their gods painted on it. This is a Confucius Pearl of Wisdom, so it has a saying. These are little tiny pieces of ivory. I took some pictures and I'll be showing you. That's actually a panda bear, and that is a horse. Also, this is a walnut, and it has 1,000 gods. And again, that's a perfect example of something that you and I would never probably think of to make. These are made out of rice flour. They are the traditional, I can't remember, I think 17 beauties. I should know this, I'm sorry. And they take 1 day to make. This is a historical ethnic group of people. Many people think that there's only one group of Chinese, and that's absolutely not true. The outside, again, this is pretty typical of many places in the rural area. Now in the urban areas, not. What would happen is you'd have rows, you'd have 2 lines of houses, and then what you would have is you would have a water spigot at the end of one place. I put this together because on many occasions I saw the pig drinking and peeing at the same time, and rats were everywhere. On more than one occasion, I saw the young men dressed in little military outfits. This would be a traditional Chinese wedding. The bride would be inside. She should be asked at least 3 times to come out. If she comes out before that, it shows that she has poor breeding. This is the groom right here. He would be walking alongside. He may or may not have seen the bride, depending on the situation. Now, more and more are seeing them. And then these are going to be people that are being plain, making noise, and they would be paid for, and the more people that you have, the wealthier you are. Again, carrying things over the shoulders, very common. I've also included a lady that you might see, and that is, she is taking her entire family. Here she has 1, 2, 3, 4 children on a bicycle. And again, you see that. You see an entire family on a bicycle. On many occasions, I saw men smoking cigarettes. Back here, you see many traditional entertainers. They can go for 3 nights. Now in Hong Kong and Singapore, they have amazing drone and laser shows for Lunar New Year's. These are paper cuts that are quite intricate, and no matter who you are, no matter how wealthy or poor you are, you would have those. By the way, if you're very poor, it's still very common to maybe cut a fruit such as an orange or a watermelon. And they would cut them, make quite ornate cuttings, then put a candle, and then they'd send them down the river, and they look very pretty. Up here, I've indicated what my perception of Lunar New Year was, and that is that the 3 men birds are having a good time, enjoying seeing all the festivities, and the 1 female bird is busy working, keeping her egg warm. It's quite colorful, lots and lots of fireworks. The reason that you have fireworks is to scare the bad spirits away, and the reason that you have red is it's an auspicious color, and Nan, N-A-I-N, who's the dragon that comes at New Year's, is afraid of the color red. So by doing that, you keep away the evil spirits. Okay, this is the front of Gim Wing and Wo Chi Chung's. Gim Wing actually, even though this is part of Gim Wing and this is Wo Chi Chung's, Gim Wing actually owned the building, although Wo Chi Chung was a much bigger mercantile store. They were very important in terms of helping everyone, the Chinese in the Stingray district. Okay, so this is the top front of Gim Wing, and they were very famous also for their fireworks. They made their own fireworks, and they became quite popular. Number 104, what this is this is actually it represents a hole in the wall where they would, when time was appropriate, they would put down a opium pipe, and then when people that weren't here, that weren't supposed to see it, they would pull it back up. All of these are historically correct in terms of time, and the way we got those is the museum had 1 box that was correct, and then we put it in the computer and multiplied it. This was all the things for Lunar New Year, which was a very big event for many reasons. This was one of the places where they slept, as was very usual. They would all sleep upstairs from whatever their place of business was, or in the back. The only thing that is not authentic in all these models are the pictures, and they are pictures of the people that actually did live there, but at the time that they did live there, the pictures were not there. If we move down below, this is a very important part, because the people, the Chinese that came here, many paper sons, which I think you all know what a paper son is, they didn't really have a place to live. What they had was a slab of wood in a, sometimes a corrugated or just a piece of wood shack. So they really didn't have a place to hang out. So this served as a place for them to hang out here. Very customary for people to chew tobacco, so every place had a spittoon. So these things right here are made out of capsules. This is a capsule, and then the top of this is just, it's a little a cutting, usually from a little piece of glue or something like that. Original picture also of Gimwing. This is an actual replica of the actual scale, and you can see we're measuring the lotus cuts here. Very important is this sign right here. Since the men here did not really have an address, this served as a place for them to get their mail and have correspondence. So it's both in Chinese and English, so that they can, and that was their way to stay in contact with home. Continuing on with the Gimwing side of the model. So this is more sleeping accommodations, and you can see that this is where they did their cooking. Again, these are pictures of the original family, and that was not in the original domicile. You can see that they had their toothbrushes and everything that they needed to make life as comfortable as it could be. The old-fashioned bathroom, this would have been higher up here, but these walls are cut in half so that you can see it. Continuing on to the bottom side of this, this was the desk, and all of these documents are reproduction of actual documents that were used to come into the United States for Gimwing. Gambling is very popular with Chinese, and it was especially popular then. And these are all the lottery tickets. And again, these are replicas of everything that actually, the actual documents. The Chinese are quite private in many things that they do, including how much money they make and where they're making their money. So this was a secret space that they covered up, and they covered up the lottery winnings and etc. Sometimes they would have large amounts of money on hand. This was the storage room, as you can see. And then this was the kitchen area. And as you can see, they had an old ice box where you would buy the ice from the peddler that would sell it, or if you couldn't afford that, you could go buy it yourself. And there was a pan on the bottom that would catch the water as it drips. Okay, this is Wochi Chunks, and it was the bigger, and actually it went through several different renovations. Maybe some of you can even remember. They actually had two stores at one time, one in Kearney Mesa and one downtown. And they provided lots and lots of things that were needed for the Chinese. I like to point out these little guys. They're almonds. And I don't know if you can see, but this door opens and closes. I bought those when I was living in China. I want to say they were about $1 a piece. Can you see that that opens and closes, that little tiny door? I don't know if you can see it or not. But see, they open and close. Here we have the jade, the ivory, cinnamon, and the all the imports, the traditional blue and white Chinese. Upstairs is more living accommodations. They had one pair of skates, and maybe some of you can remember how you could adjust the pair of skates, and that's what they did. They adjusted it for all the kids in the family. Again, these were all I think this was the parents' room. The boys slept in the hall, as indicated. They had very little time, but what time they did have, they did enjoy sports. This is the Chinese school, the original Chinese school, and all the books here are copies of actual books that the museum had, and I just copied them and made them smaller. Moving to the front to the back of Gimwing, Actually, this is the parents' room, which is the nicest. Again, all the pictures, all of the things that they sold, and storage, shoes, traditional Chinese lanterns, for Chinese New Year. We have the grocery area. So they not only sold dry goods, but they sold whatever really you needed. So we had fish, we have eggs, again, everything bok choy. These are the original documents from Gim Wing, and they're just copied, but they are the original documents. We have an area for dry goods, and as pretty standard, there's a red curtain that's separated. Most of you know that red is an auspicious color for the Chinese, and so many times that's the color of the fabric that they would use. Here's an old washing machine, and just exactly like they had it, and then an old ironing board. This is where they grew the mung beans so that they could make soy sauce, okay? This is the machinery that when they were making the tofu, let it set up, okay? Then this was the little bottling, this was the bottling cap where they put the caps for the soy sauce. And of course they sold that also. This is also a kitchen area, and you can see everybody, there's several different kitchen areas, and they would use these for different things. Here's the bird, very popular with Chinese again, and I have Chinese newspaper on the bottom of that. This is a vat that would be used, number 60 would be used for making the mung. 57 is, you'll see this in almost every Chinese home, some sort of chopping block for cutting, mostly fish, but it could be other things also. The next model that I'd like to take you to, it happens to be my favorite that I've done. It is called the Turf Club. It was owned by several different proprietors, and I've combined several time sequences here. So some of the things that I put in would be before electricity, and then some of it would be after electricity, because it was here during both periods. This room, this is the Leroy room. Again, that's a copy of an actual sign. The Leroy rooms and Mabel rooms were for the Chinese, and I'll be showing you those in just a moment and talk about what their use is. Here we have a pool table. I'm going to take you inside, see how well I can do this here. And we have instruments. We have people at the bar. There's a picture of this in the museum, and you can get an idea about what I copied. I'm going to now take you up to the room where the madam is, and how she's interviewing a young lady right here. This madam happens to be Jewish. There were several different madams. The girl, this is actually from the San Diego Union, an old thing, and it's asking for a mail order bride. The problem is, when she got here, the husband had already married someone, and so you can see she's a little tearful about it, but it's the only kind of work that she can get. Here's another working room, and you can see there's a pot for getting rid of things during the night. If you're wondering how the wallpaper matches the material, is I take the material, I Xerox it, and then I use that for the wallpaper. moving to another working room. Again, the same idea with the wallpaper. And you can see that the ladies had everything they could to make themselves look and smell nice. Remember, water is not as readily available as it is today. And the girls spent quite a bit of their earnings on things to make them look better. These papers, these flowers are made out of paper and then painted. I'm gonna go to the top here. This is a garden. Probably there were much more vegetables and fruits grown in the garden than there would be flowers. And then we have a little place for relaxing, quite nice for San Diego. And of course we have some of the things that they're the unmentionables, where they're cleaning, they're drying. Everything, of course, is going to be washed with a hand. I'm going to show you the washing machine a little bit later. I'm going to move now to the kitchen area. Again, this is a conglomerate of different time periods. Some of you can remember these old stoves and or old refrigerators. This is a pie tin. And then we have and again, everything's old in terms of the food. Then we have a wash machine, an old hand wash machine, and that's how everything would have been cleaned. Number 45 is for drying whatever they can dry, really, but a lot of herbs and fruits, etc. I'm going to move down here now to what is called the Leroy room. This is how the Chinese got involved in this, besides just running certain things and working. So, as you probably already know, Chinese like to gamble. So these are all Xerox copies of the lottery tickets, and you can see some of those in the museum, and that's where I copied them from. Number 4 is the machine that marks the punch machine, and again, you can see that in the Chinese museum. Also, we have that. In the corner, we have a secret hiding place for probably money. We have 2 safes, a mahjong set, a Chinese man with his cue, and by the way, cues were outlawed after a while, which was really just to insult the Chinese, because it is it's a sign of praise. You can see that there is a opium scale. Opium was legal, or at least allowed, till 1929 in San Diego area, in the Stingray area. So this is the Leroy or Mabel room. That photograph, I believe, was taken from a photograph that was actually in one of the Leroy rooms. I'm moving on to the bar area again. The Stingray area was called Stingray for 2 reasons. One is it had stingrays, and you had to shuffle your feet to make sure that you didn't step on them and they didn't sting you. But also you had to be careful about getting stung in the Stingray district, because this is where all the vices were allowed to take place. As you can see, these 3 men are all cheating. They have cards hidden everywhere, which would be typical. Of course, the dollars are not, the dollars are silver certificates. We have the fireplace here, and the way that you make the smoke in the fireplace is lint from the dryer, and then you put hairspray on it, and that's what gives that illusion. We have a working girl here, and she is stealing money from the drink sailor, and the drink sailor is spilling his drink on the floor, as you can see. So things are going on as usual in the Stingray area. The Chinese were not allowed to frequent the place. They were only allowed to work. Tremendous amount of prejudice. I think most of you are somewhat familiar with that. And then we have the old salty dog. Lots of marine type things, sextet, how they would decide where they were going. That's number 19. And you could look at this for a long time to see all the little intricacies that are here. Let's move up to an interesting area, again, the bordello area, both the waiting and the actual working room. Here we have the sheriff, who was pretty corrupt, and he's visiting the girls so that he doesn't enforce what are called blue laws, so didn't enforce prostitution. As you can see, he's got all the leg irons and handcuffs mixed up. The cat's having a good time playing with it. And the keys to the jail are around his faithful dog. The fireplace, there's a metal part in the fireplace. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this here. And what would happen is that would be heated, and then it would stay heated. The metal would heat the room for many hours after they didn't have coal or wood. This little thing is called a bed warmer, and again, you would have coals in that and warm the bed. The ladies would use rats in their hair, and these are copies of their rats. Of course, Tiffany, nice Tiffany lamp here. Here we have cigars, semi-nude, and booze. And then the bell, if you can see the little bell, that's when they let people know that they were there or ready. Number 45, let me see if I can get number, yeah, 45. What that was used for is to scrape the mud off of their boots. Remember that at this time, there's no paved streets. And by the way, the two guys that I interviewed for Yim Wing and Wo Chi Chung's said that when they came here, there was no paved streets. Number 65 are you dry socks with them, put the sock over it and allow the air to go through. Also, somewhere in here is a sock darner. A lot of people don't know what a sock darner is, but it is used to darn socks so that you just don't throw socks away. I'm going to also take you over to this area so that you can see the man in the bathroom, and that effect is it's a theater production, and it's called Shrim. And if any of you that's been to a play, what it is a thin screen. When light is behind it, it shows through, and when it doesn't, when there is no light, you see whatever's been painted on the trim. This is the marking machine that was used in the laundry, and this was the button tray. So this is a picture of the same machine that you just saw in the model, and those little lottery tickets are what I copied for the model. The next trip that I'd like to take you is through the Chinese laundry. Some of you were able to hear John's lecture several months ago, and this is a copy of exactly the laundry that he grew up with. I do want to point out here, we have the fan, and again, I made that the same way with the computer fan. And then we have 329, and again, that's macaroni. That material on the door, on the screen door, is just, it's called tulle, and then it's painted. And then all of this was authentically reproduced and miniaturized so that you can see what the actual laundry looked like. Moving on to the interior, I'd like to show you actual photos or calendars that were in the actual laundry. I believe that's a permit. All of these dollars are, of course, silver certificates, because in those days they backed everything with silver. And I'm showing you the front. All of these documents, again, are just copied from the original documents. So they were invoices. The laundry was at the bottom here. This is the marking machine. I'll take a picture also of the real marking machine in just a couple minutes here. But that's how they indicated where the laundry was going. The little girl is supposed to be John's sister, and that's exactly how she was. She stayed in that little basket. I also made the basket. It's a weaving. It's not very difficult at all. Here you have all the folded laundry. And up here you have the sad irons, many which we have in the museum. I'm going to move to the desk. Those little pencils are made from pins, and they're just painted. That bell, the top is made from some sort of blister pack, painted silver. On the bottom is a tiny little battery, and the little dinger is a pin painted. I've also indicated as you can see, the steps throughout the little footprints. Now you see it, and maybe you didn't notice it before. But it's those sorts of things that a good model maker would want to give their attention to, because what you want to always do is tell a story. So you have to ask yourself, what story do I want to be telling? The trash cans are made from cups with corrugated cardboard put around it and then just painted. And the tops are made from to-go containers. And then again, just a little something put on for the handle. I'm going to move on to the wrapping area. As you can see, this was where they would wrap all the laundry. And then we have the ironing area. And if I tell you that those are tongue depressors, I think you can see that quite readily now. I'm trying to see what I put down here. That I made those things of. I can't really remember. And this is the laundry part. And then if we move over here, we have all of the shirts. And this was also where they would iron some of them. It was extremely hot in here, and they had fans. This is another example of one of those fans that I made from a computer fan. I think what it's standing on is a little thin, I think that's what they're called, from a lamp that goes on top of a lamp. And then if you look at the back here, that little plastic thing in the back is again for the lamp, the fan. That's just again something that something came in that's plastic and painted. The radio is a piece of wood with some lines in it. I can't remember whether I filed those or just carved them out. And then I put a little fake space on the radio. There's an old-time radio. So those are how some of those things are produced. I'm trying to get a little bit better picture. And those are just little circles you can see. Everybody wants to know how those the shirts are made. So I thought I would just tell you as briefly as I can. And the squares are just, it's a square piece of cardboard. It's covered with a piece of material. And then I am going to show you how I make the collar. It starts out with a piece of material that looks something like this. Okay, it would be flat. I folded this to make it easier. Then all I do is fold it this way and fold it this way. And then you can see that becomes the collar. And then it's just glued on the piece of cardboard. And then it has, those are tiny little beads and a piece of blue ribbon. I'm going to move over to the sewing machine. Again, everything's authentic. I'm going to show you a picture of the real one. I don't know if you can see that says Singer on the sewing machine, and again, that's macaroni. This is a button tin, and I'm going to show you the actual button tin that we have in the museum. We still have that, as we do the sewing machine, which I'll also show you, and the marking machine, which I'll also show you. If we move into the living area, these are pictures of John's parents. And here we have a couch. We have a lamp. I believe that lamp was just made out of jewelry findings, and then I've put some just putty or clay over, filed it, and that's been painted with some sort of nail polish. The shade is, again, it's an upside down container that you would get cream in, and then a light is put in it. The rollaway bed is the interior is just something that you would find at a hardware store. And then the springs are the inside of a ballpoint pen. And then the area around it is something we call fillers. And they're just what might be attached, a little plastic tube where they've sent the plastic in, and something else is attached to it. We have the altar, and the candles are made from a cut straw. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to try and see. You can see the drippings of the candle, and that's just nail polish that's been dripped on. Okay. As we go to the food area, all of those little blue and white containers are all just blister pack things that have been painted. This particular item, it'll give you an idea. That's a bead. It has a couple pieces of wire attached to it right there and there, and then that's a bead on top. And that's how I make that. The rest of the stuff is called Fimo. Some of you may know what that is. It's just it's a kind of clay that you make, and then you can just put it in the oven. The suitcases are simply pieces of styrofoam covered with leather, and I might have used an old glove or something like that. I can't really remember. And then those are just your little jewelry findings. Over here we have pictures of John's parents when they were younger. We have a Chinese newspaper, And we have golf clubs because John's dad liked to play golf as well as play the violin. So I'm going to show you the violin. And the way the violin is made is it is a cardboard cutout. And you get two of them, and then you put something in between, and that's what, and then the black part that you see, that's just wood that's been filed, and then the strings are just fishing line. And then we have the sheet music of Ave Maria. This is a picture of what I cut the violin out of. See, so I cut that. And then to make the case, I just simply traced that case and covered the inside with kind of a red felt material and the outside with some sort of leather. Then those are just jewelry findings to make the latches. If we come in here, we see the kitchen area, and again, everything's authentic in terms of the time period and what we would use. This is an example of what I've done is that's a dowel, and then on top of that is a tiny little battery. And the number 20 is a place where you would cut the fish, very standard in most Chinese homes. And again, you see the blister packs that are painted. The tops of the lids for those pots are flattened snaps and then just painted, so you can see. And again, we have the old style stove that they had. In spite of the fact that they had a laundromat, they did their own laundry. These washing containers, those are all to-go containers. And then I put a little wire on the side and then just painted them. If we go to this area in the shower, that little drain is a speaker from an earplug. Maybe now you realize what that is. The refrigerator is, again, actually it's probably wood or cardboard, I can't remember. And then those silver things are just different jewelry findings. The bathroom, everybody wants to know, how did I do the bathroom? The bathroom is a kit that you can buy, relatively inexpensive. And then the water is just a piece of plastic that's been painted blue. Same thing with the water up here. So I hope you've enjoyed this trip through memory lane of the Chinese laundry.
Well, first of all, I would think I'm speaking for everybody to say that we're all mesmerized by the stuff that you've done. And I would have bet $1 million that a lot of the stuff you made yourself, you bought commercially, and how wrong I was. But before we talk anymore, I want to turn things over to John, who has his own little video that Wu Ting is going to be showing. So without any further ado, I want to reintroduce John, whose parents had the laundry.
Hi there, I'm John LeeWong, and as Bob had mentioned, my parents ran a laundry in San Diego, downtown San Diego for nearly 40 years, and it moved from location to location. The model that I worked with or collaborated with Lois on is the original laundry in its first location in the early days, which is circa late 1930s. But first, I'd like to, really thank Lois for taking us through all the painstaking detail and effort that she goes through to create these things, because, everything is you can buy some stuff in dollhouse stores, but most of them are all in the wrong proportions. So she's got to recreate these things, make them original to fit the scale of the given model and the parameters that she needs to build. I remember the first time I saw Lois's model of Gimwing store, and the detail I looked at it, and it immediately brought back memories of when I was in well, I was a little kid, and I was going to Chinese school 2 doors down from Gimwing. And I remember going in there during recess to buy dried seeds and dried ginger as snacks. And I went to Chinese school with their grandson, Dexter, and I used to play with their grand nieces and nephews upstairs, which had then become family residences rather than rental rooms and whatnot. But her models just bring back, all the details and memories. I first met Lois in 2006, which is about 1 year after I completed the laundry exhibit for the museum. And I received a call from the museum, and they said they were interested in having me work with Lois on building a model of my parents' laundry. And we had one meeting, and then the project was put into indefinite hold. And then 13 years later, I got a call from Dr. Lily Cheng, and that was in 2019. And again, she said, a lot of people love the Chinese history of Chinese laundry exhibit, but we'd like to have a model of your parents' laundry. And we had that first initial meeting, and with Lily Cheng in 2019, and then the pandemic hit in 2020, and the museum was closed down because of the social distancing restrictions. And so what Lois and I decided was we're just going to take our time and build this model. And we spent about 2.5 years doing that, countless phone calls, emails, about a dozen visits to her studio to build this model. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to share a short video that my son, Cameron LeeWong, shot at Lois's studio about a week before the model was delivered to the museum. It took 2.5 years, and then it was a mad rush for about the last month to pull it all together to meet the deadline for the reopening of the museum. So Muting, can you play the video?
Hi, I'm John LeeWong. In 2005, I researched and developed the history of Chinese laundries in San Diego exhibit for the San Diego Chinese Historical Museum. About 3 years ago, the museum gave me a call and asked me to work with their model builder, Lois Wittner, on a model of my parents' laundry, Wong Lee Laundry, which was located on 329 East Street in downtown San Diego. If I was giving someone a tour of this model, the first thing I would do is I'd point out the facade, to take a look at all the signage that's painted on the window. It tells a story of what they do, the services they offer, and peek through the window to see what's really going on in there. You could see all the bundles, you could see the dirty laundry, you can see all the hand irons, and all the laundry that is in progress. One thing that they would notice for sure is a simple cloth curtain that divided the front of the laundry from the back of the laundry, which is where the families would live. At that time, we had 6 children, and you'd look around and you'd wonder, where does everyone sleep? The reality is they'd be sleeping on the couch. There were a collapsible folding bed. You had to make the small space work in many different ways. It seemed like we spent forever in the laundry, from the time we woke up in the morning until it was time to go to sleep. It was probably 16, 18 hours a day. We actually, in the early days, we didn't go home. We actually stayed there. This model was actually based on about 3 old photographs that we had. And then from there, I had conversations with my older siblings, and I did about a dozen pencil sketches of the front of the laundry, the back of the laundry, the kitchen, all the different areas based on, you know, our collective recollections.
My name is Lois Wittner, and I've made this model and several others for the Chinese Museum. All models are a labor of love in some ways, but this one probably took me 3,247,018 hours. I think the most important thing about the model is that we begin to realize what our history was. The most interesting and in some ways life-changing is what a difficult time Chinese laundry people had and how many hours they worked. And I have to tell you, while I was working on the model, for many, many mornings I woke up and said, oh, am I glad that I don't have to work in a Chinese laundry.
I think Lois did a phenomenal job. She listened and she absorbed all the details, and she captured all the clutter that you would see in a laundry. She was building something that she had never seen before. There were lots of details about the laundry, old laundry equipment, a mixture of American and Chinese artifacts. We had to research that and then look for photo reference for her to build from. Behind the front counter in the laundry, you'll notice a straw laundry basket with a little girl in it. That was my older sister when she was 1.5 years old. My mother used to put her in a basket as a playpen while she worked the front counter. There's a list of captions that correspond to numbered items in the model. And those items range from a handkerchief ironing machine, the laundry marking machine, and my father's golf clubs, which he never found time to use. The model is definitely a history of our family, but it also clearly shows how many other Chinese families lived in the back of their laundry. So if you haven't been by the museum to see the Chinese laundry exhibit, you should stop by and also check out the new model of Wong Lee Laundry. I think you'll enjoy it.
So on top of that, I'd, really, again, like to thank Lois for, the time that she put in to bringing this model to life. And I'd like to encourage everyone, if you're ever in San Diego, and especially people who actually live in San Diego, is come down to the museum and take a look and take a close look at these models, especially after Lois's video, where she was able to explain the painstaking detail that it took to create everything in these models, which a lot of times when people walk through the museum, they kind of glance, they look through the side viewing panels, a few from different angles, and they see a lot of work, they see a recreation, but they just have no idea how much time and creativity that it takes to bring these to life. So, any questions for anybody?
Well, while we're gathering questions, we'll ask Elizabeth. I have to say how much this has moved me, and we're going to try to enhance everyone's experience at the museum by having little video snippets by the various models. And it's also affecting people. My friend Barb is watching this with me, and she is affected. She grew up in the small town of Grafton, Wisconsin, living above her parents' grocery store, which was the only grocery store in town at the time. And instead of a basket, laundry basket, she was put in a shopping cart as a little girl. And this whole thing is resonating with her, and she's really moved watching this, John and Lois. This is just a wonderful morning. I mean, this is something totally different. And, I'm just loving this. Elizabeth, what questions do we have from the audience?
Okay, now in the chat box, we have quite a few comments. I think there seems to be a consensus that people are very, very impressed by the quality of your work, Lois. I'm going to read things in the order that they've come. The first one is kind of a comment and question from Karen Gold. Sorry about, I hope that I pronounced your surname correctly. It's okay if you want to correct me. But here's what she has to say. Your work is magnificent, splendid, hard to believe. Thank you for your excellent presentation. How many years have you been creating models? And then how long does it take you to complete one model?
I'm going to answer that question about how long it takes me. Some things in life you cannot measure in time, and working with miniatures is one of those things. Having said that, it takes me 3,246 hours to do each model. I'm being facetious, of course. I don't keep track. And sometimes what happens is I will glue something or put it together, and 2 weeks later I'll work on it in another fashion. I also have done more than one model at one time, so it's hard to keep track of time. But time is not a commodity that you can count when you're doing that. I like to think of it as a reference in life. Sometimes time is not an issue, and it can't be.
Lois, can I ask you a follow-up question to that? I want to ask you, in your work as a professor in college, were you doing any of this?
Yes, I was. In fact, it first started as a sabbatical project. That was my very first sabbatical project. And then Murray Lee and I'm sorry, the head
Felix
guy.
Chong?
Yeah. I happened to be doing a presentation with Mary Lee. The Chinese societies happened to see it. They asked me to do something. That's how it got started. I was involved in doll houses and miniatures before that.
Would it make
Question?
Well, I'm going to turn things. I'm going to be asking Elizabeth in a minute, but again, my appreciation for those models, and I've been now a docent for a number of years at the museum, has been increased a zillion-fold after listening to this and hearing you, Lois, and hearing John. I mean, it's like a completely different experience. It's sort of like having a musician hear music versus a layperson hear music. They're hearing the same music and they may be enjoying it, but on a different level. And now things are going to be at a much better level. And I'm going to try to impart that to the visitors when I'm at the museum, which is the trick. And that's why I think we want to enhance the signage. We want to enhance and have some video snippets. And I'm going to work with our executive director about that.
I might also add that in China, they did very meticulous things historically. For example, on the snuff bottles, you've seen the paintings, how small they are. Yes. And then they had the forbidden stitch. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Very, almost the size of a pinpoint. And they, especially the younger girls, made those. So the Chinese themselves historically have miniaturized lots and lots of things. You saw the almonds and the walnuts, but they have a history of making very small things as part of their historical culture, really.
Yeah. Someone's asking about the name of the club. Could you tell us that, Lois?
The name of the for models?
No, the club that you made the model of.
Oh, the surf club.
Okay.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Turf Club and Saloon. Turf Club and Saloon is what Elizabeth Cheney put into the chat box. Is that right?
Right.
Turf Club and Saloon. Yeah.
The Surf Club and Parlor House, and that's where the Leroy rooms were also.
You know, everyone is fascinated with models. At the San Diego Museum of Art, they have a giant collection of Persian and Indian miniatures, over 1,400. And one needs a magnifying glass to see some of it. And it was done with brushes made from a single hair of a squirrel or other animal. And so you can identify with that, eh, Lois?
Yeah, the Chinese were very famous for taking one human hair and using it as a paintbrush. Very, very famous for that.
Amazing, right? So John, you must be feel very satisfied that Lois has made such an authentic reproduction of your parents' store. Now I'm asking my friend Barb if she wants to have a model made of her parents' grocery store from Grafton, Wisconsin, and her living quarters, and above it were her mom and her dad and 5 kids, and they all grew up above a grocery store. John?
Very common experience for many immigrants.
Oh, absolutely. I think Lois did a phenomenal job. It was also an incredible experience to actually go to her studio and actually see all of the resources that she has. You know, she's got lots of space dedicated, a lot of storage space. We would talk about things and she would say, give me a couple minutes, and she'd go into her garage and she would come back with all these other things. So yeah, her resources and her collection of possibilities that she can build off of are just incredible.
I'd like to add that I am dyslexic, and it actually helps me with the models because I will see something. People will say, how do you see that? And I said, I don't know, I just see it. So being dyslexic hurt me in part of my life, but it's really helped me now.
Well, you've done a superb job here, and as the dyslexics say, dog speed. And so, Elizabeth, are there any other questions from the folks watching? I also have to make a comment about these Saturday lectures are amazingly interesting and different from what you would imagine, and in general better. And you know, you look at the title and you wonder how it's going to be, and you wonder what they're going to say about for example, Puranicans and the Puranican community, and generally think this is a wonderful morning, Lois and John. I've just enjoyed this immensely. Elizabeth, what else do you have?
Okay, well, we do have a couple more comments. We have comments from SDCHM board members. Catherine Jones writes, she is speechless over this. She has almost no words to even write it down. She's immersed in your marvelous presentation, Lois. It's remarkable work, and you are our Chinese Historical Museum's true treasure in all caps. She's jealous of your nimble fingers, which create all of these incredible items, and she loves this, plus how your humor shows up as well. It's a treat always to show our visitors each of the dioramas or each of the models, but now you've really brought these to life for Kathy. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Oh, and we have Hilda who watched this from Holland, and so she's commenting as well. Hilda is a
from Holland. Thank you, Val.
So very
I said
good.
very good. I said very good and thank you in Dutch. My mother.
So Lois, so you know a little Dutch. We'll see whether Hilda responds to that.
Yes,
Klein beetje.
Heel goed, heel goed.
Elizabeth, what
Okay.
else do we have here?
Right. So we have a comment from Emily Schell, how she absolutely loves the models in the museum and now has an even greater appreciation for the process and storytelling that you shared, Lois. Such creativity and what a perspective on the world, seeing lampshades in creamer containers, pot lids in snaps, and bowls in blister packs. Wow. Thank you, Lois. We also have something from Joy Chu. Fascinating inside view of the San Diego version of a Chinese hand laundry, speaking here as the descendant of a paper son who helped to run the wholesale service that served a huge swath of Manhattan hand laundries back in the day. Bravo on the creation of these models. Thank you for this presentation and the dedication to depicting one major aspect of how the Chinese survived their immigration to the United States.
Thank you.
So there, we also have, I guess, a comment from Patricia Fisher. Miniature model making is a real visual art. Thank you for sharing. She's interested to know, Lois, if you have a website with close-up images.
I do not. I might do that.
Mhm.
Well,
I haven't done it yet.
I do have to reiterate, I'm going to be working with Lily Birmingham, who's a director of our docents, as well as Jacinta, who's the executive director, and Elizabeth, and we're going to talk about trying to enhance the visitor's experience in seeing these models now that we see how far more fascinating they are. And I have to repeat that you've done such wonderful work, Lois, that much of the stuff that I thought was purchased out of a dollhouse catalog, you made yourself. I never would have bet in a million years that you made that violin. I just absolutely love it all. And so it's just fascinated by the whole thing. So if there are no other questions, I want to just mention next month and the month after. Next month, we're having Joseph Ho, who's going to speak about oral histories and family memories, Chinese American experience. And then the following month after that, the Peranakan communities in Malacca and Penang, which should be equally fascinating. And I want to thank everyone